Welcome back to Bobbin Around. We've got a brand new episode, our first one after we've all gotten over our text process hangovers and gotten back to the real world, which has been plenty chaotic and interesting as ever before. My name is Xochitl Herrera-Shear. I'm president of the Chicago Pattern Maker and the unofficial president of the Spisa Fan Club. And I've got my co-host, Michael. You introduce yourself.
Thanks, Xochitl. I'm Michael McDonald. I'm the president of Spisa and the unofficial president of the Xochitl Fan Club.
And we have an awesome guest I was going to say this morning. It's not even this morning. So today, an awesome guest today, Yoram Burg from Morgan Tecnica. Thank you for being our guest victim today.
Thank you for having me.
So those of you who were at Text Process and weren't too hungover saw us on the couch between two ferns for a few minutes, but we really enjoyed our conversation and wanted to dive a little bit deeper. So let's get to know you first, though. I think Michael's favorite question to ask, I'm going to ask at this time, is how did you enter this industry? Were you born into it or were you tricked into it?
I would say the latter. And it's kind of a funny story. Yeah. No, you checked me in quite well. So the year is probably 95 or 96, and I live in Thailand, out of all places. And I met the founder of a company, at that time was quite a rather small one, called Tetrix. And we met at the lounge at the Bangkok International Airport, and we sat together, we boarded the flight. He was traveling to Israel, and so were I. And then we became friends, and then we met 2-3 times thereafter on the same flight, Bangkok to Tel Aviv. And at one point he said, listen, I really like what you do as far as business development. Come work for me. And I was altogether in a completely different industry. Nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. And at what point he kept pressing, meaning through the years, he kept pressing, and he threw the following sentence at me, and he said, you know what, you may be making more money in what you're doing right now, but you're not working in a smart industry, which was true. So I came home, my wife asked me what's going on. I said, someone insulted me. She said, so what do you want to do? I said, maybe I'll try and see what the other side has to offer. And I'm on a break ever since, so I call it. So that's how I entered the industry. The year was 2003. Started with Optitex, moved to the USA, and the rest is history.
Wow.
Well, there's a lot of history in that rest. You've been all over the place over the next few decades, and so it's always been one of our goals to keep you involved in the Spisa family, and so you'll do a little shift, and I'll find a way to drag you back in. So I'm glad we've got you for as long as we've got you, and whatever your next chapter is, I'm going to fight for you again.
Excellent. I'm all for that.
Awesome. So, I mean, it can give us a little bit, I would assume, late 90s, you were just out of college. So that's probably how you started your career. I'm going to make that assumption and give you the age there.
Thank you for the compliment, by the way.
But yeah, so what industry were you in before you got into ours?
Diamonds.
Ah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I spent about 14 years of my life in Thailand. Mainly on the production side. So I kind of got to get close to production and understand production setups and moving employees around the production floor, setting up production lines and so on, not for apparel, but actually for cutting diamonds.
Wow.
And from there, it all rolled into sales offices, a sales operation, maybe we can call it like that. And then it was working, things were working. And at one point I felt like, it's okay. Diamond doesn't require you to work many hours a day or many hours a month. I mean, if you know how to source and stay away from trouble, this is basically the essence of working in the diamond industry in 2 sentences, then you would probably be doing okay. But then I met the guy, and we're still friends up until now. He's, of course, well retired, but we're still good friends, and we kind of get to meet every now and then.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a transition for sure. But I'm glad it's one you made.
Yeah, the only line that connects the two is the production.
Right.
Other than that, nothing else.
Nothing else. You went from one shiny object to a different one.
Oh yeah.
What is the most, I don't know, exciting thing kind of happening in this industry, do you feel like?
These days?
Yes, these days. I don't want to start with the problems. I want to start with like what excites you, because I feel like we can back into how that solves some of the problems.
I think that, look, definitely technology, but I think that technology kind of struggles to find its way and settle in. And you know, for one company, it may very well be 3D. For another company, it may very well be enhancing their production operation through, shop floor solutions. Although, or maybe upstream, we'll talk about, cut plan orders, what we call in Morgan Tecnica Mastermind, and so on. So you see a mix of all kinds of things happening out there, but I think that, given a post I see on LinkedIn and things like that, it's like there is something great happening here and then something great happening there, but none of it is like actually connected to a point where you say, you know what, I can change my business start to finish just by implementing this solution. And I'm not saying what is this solution, but this thing. Much like when you have, and I'm going to hold my phone here for a second, much like when I have my iPhone, some of us can run their whole business off an iPhone, right? So this is implementing this. It's not a set of phones that translate into a process, more so like one phone that helps us about, let's say, 80% of what we need to do. But we don't have such a technology that does 80% of what we need in this business. So my observation on the 22 or 23 years I've been around is this is what is exciting, is like how you can try and connect all those pieces together. They exist, but some of them are easy to use, some are hard to use, some are well perceived by customers as far as like, why do I need to adopt this technology? Some are like, let me kick the tires. I'm not even at the point of lifting the hood. Those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. It's very interconnected, all the pieces. I feel like everyone in this industry is a problem solver in some way, shape, or form.
Exactly that.
And it is really interesting that you mentioned that, because I mean, I think that's a kind of a talking point that has reemerged over the last few months, even. Even ever since the trade show, I think a lot of people are just talking about how do we better connect the industry. And I think you could define that from a million different directions of like, how do you make the machines talk to each other to how do you make the people talk to each other? The industry just needs to be connected. And I remember, this is, back when you were with Optitex, when I first started with Spies about 8 years ago, that was the hot topic of like, how do we, and we had our friends at Next Wave and a few people that I'm sure that you had worked with at the time that like were actively trying to solve that problem. And I don't think, it was one of those things of like, they weren't wrong, they were just early. And I think now we really have another opportunity with the work that AI can do to kind of help manage some of that extra manpower of like, okay, well, I can get a Juki sewing machine to talk to a Gerber cutting machine, but then what happens when I have a Juki Jack, Sunwave, Singer, like, all different types of machines. And so we're starting to see that resurgence, at least from the manufacturing sector, of like, okay, let's get everything to talk to each other. And so I am like, it's not a new issue, but it's definitely something that is happening better and faster than it has in the last decade recently. So it is definitely something worth being excited about.
Yeah, I think you mixed a few things in here that I'd like to chop into a little salami. So one of them is AI. The other one is to connect everything. One of them was 8 years ago. One of them is today. And if I try to kind of find like the line that connects all of them is like, I tend to equate it to an article I read a while back about researching cancer. When you look at it, you say, how come people are still dying? On the other hand, if you look at the progress that was made throughout this last so many years in researching cancer, you'll say, oh my God, we came such a long way. So I tend to equate that to how our industry is working. I mean, we have 3D solutions, we have cut plan orders, we have shop floor solutions, we have PLM, we have evil people that are still using PDM and Excel sheets. Somehow those things are progressing each and every year, okay? But collectively, they're not there yet. So it's a journey, and I think that we have to be focused on the journey more than we're focused on the destination. And we can put the word AI as a goal and say, you know what, how will AI, given where it is today, enable us to work smarter, enable us to work better? And then I'm not speaking about, more people, less people. Obviously, we had, if you remember years ago, Michael, we had the whole retail apocalypse discussion. People were standing on podiums and saying, the millions of people are going to be left out of the workplace and end up what? 4.2 unemployment rate. So apparently they're finding their job someplace else. I'm not too worried about jobs. I'm more interested in how the technology can enable all those more jobs. And those people will actually work in smarter positions, not in like less tech savvy or tech oriented positions. All that said, I think that our industry should be focused on the journey to the destination. And we can put AI as the goal, as I said before, but there are milestones to get past until we hit that stage. And layer on top of that, the conversation about how can one vendor speak with another vendor's solution, which has always been a challenge and probably always will be, right? But we need to be able to focus on generic file formats, on how you and I can communicate this meeting through Microsoft Outlook, whether you, Sachil, work on a Mac and I work on an older PC or an older laptop. I'm just joking. And then some people may see it on their phone, but then we can exchange a PDF file or maybe a PowerPoint presentation, and it will land itself on any computer. We'll get there. It's a journey. I'm no longer one of those who are saying 3 years from now, 5 years from now, because it's been 23 years and still we're on our way. So,
but it's getting better. The things that have happened
every single year.
I like the term progress over perfection. So I think that's a good way to look at it too, is not just where are you going? And it always seems so far away when you look at it that way, but what tangible steps and what progress have you made? The other thing on communication, like not only the different companies and machines and things like that, but there's a lot of talk about like generational communication and like how does like a boomer generation or Gen X communicate with the millennial who is now older, but like now Gen Z entering the workforce, and soon after the Gen Alphas, which is like our kids' age, Michael's children's ages, a totally different generation. So making the industry interesting, appealing, cool, make manufacturing cool, I think is something like we have an obligation and a reason that we have to do that to keep it going, right?
Absolutely. I think that if anything, Generation YZ boomers and so on and so forth, I belong to I'm not going to say, I'm not going to disclose it publicly. I'm still 24. Don't mistake that. But I'll always be, by the way. But the idea is that we learn from each other, I mean, a person who gets up in the morning and saying, I've been doing this for 30 years, that's not a person I'll be listening to, okay, ever, even if it's my wife. But the thing is that the learning is a journey, much like we said about getting there. The learning is also a journey. My father, a great guy, always says, you live as long as you live, you always die stupid, because there's so much to learn. And he's right. I mean, philosophically speaking, you can say the world is full of things that never happened more than those that did, right? I mean, when you look at every given moment that passes, a lot of more things could have happened, but they didn't. So philosophically, we are always on a journey. That's the journey we're also learning from one another, kids from their parents, parents from their kids. And that's what actually enriches us and makes us better in what we do. For example, when my son was coding something, I remember my coding days and I was like, hey, take a look at this line. Maybe you can do something different here and there. And he's like, Dad, you don't know anything. And then he showed me something new that I learned. And then I took it into my little project. So there's always something to learn. Now comes AI, of course, and solve most of my coding problems. So I'm doing far better than he does. But the idea is that we need to give them tools to the young generation, okay? And the young generation, and now I'm going to take a little jab at the industry, not at anyone in particular, but what do we give them? If I'm looking at the CAD solutions, most of these solutions are solutions that were developed decades ago, okay, including the company I used to work for. And then when I joined Morgan and I looked at like, why would I want to do it again? And one of the main incentives was there was a whole fresh line of code and a whole brand new interface and a whole experience, which for me was like, what makes me feel great about this device I'm holding in my hand? So imagine that I have an amazing app, Instagram, for example, latest version, but it operates on an iPhone 10. The app may be amazing, but the infrastructure it's running on is horrible. What is the word I'm looking for? Experience. What will I come out as far as the experience? Will I know to say, oh, no, it's Apple's fault, but it's not Instagram's fault? Most people won't know to say that. But what they will know is my experience is not full. Imagine a brand new car that has a problem, or an old car that drives amazing, right? You see where I'm going with this. It's just it's the experience word I'm looking for. So my question was, what do we give them? Do we give them 3, 4, 5 decades ago software that went through updates, of course? I mean, only good things to say about everyone who's out there. But I think that at the end of the day, we need to give them something that's more modern. I mean, when you go on your iPhone or any type of those phones, there is no menus. You just go there, you get into the app, you do what you need to do. Are we giving them that kind of experience? And sometimes people are asking me, so, we don't have pattern makers anymore. Why they're not coming into the workforce? What do you think? You've been around for so many years. You've seen probably so many situations. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not the one to say what we need to do. I'm just Yoram. But at the end of the day, I'm saying that I'm looking at one word, which is experience. It drives a lot of decisions in our lives. I mean, look at the vacation destination, a business class or an economy class, all being measured by one word, experience. And that brings us back to the same service or the same product or the same whatever. So that's on a nutshell what I'm hoping we'll get.
Making it a relevant experience. I know from being an adjunct professor the past 5 years that you can't just teach something that I learned in school 20 years ago. I have to make it relevant for the world that they are experiencing and living in now, the same as the apps and other software solutions you mentioned, making it, projects that are based on things that are happening in the current world and not, again, a case study that might be 5, 10, 20 years old that's not exciting or interesting to them. Exactly. Bringing them into, we do a lot of factory tours and letting them see what does the industry actually look like, not watching a video or looking in a textbook or something like that.
Yeah that's what it is. If I know I said I'm 24, don't take that seriously. My dad is 90. The numbers won't add up. But the idea is that if my dad sits, when I go to see them and he sits there and he does this on his phone with his little fingers so faintly, and I'm like, if he does that, he also found experience that is different from a conversation or a piece of newspaper he used to read on before. Now he reads, he's 90 years old. He lived through so many experiences in life. I mean, post World War II through today. Imagine how much the world has transitioned since then to now, and how many experiences he went through in opposed to us. And he's still chasing the experience. So I'm saying if we want to bring excitement to the workforce that we're trying so hard to recruit, because at least for the foreseeable future, we can agree that pattern making is not going away. Same as grading. It's like asking the builder not to use a blueprint when they build a building. I mean, I've heard so many discussions saying, I just want to go from sketch to 3D or to a product. And I'm like, that's an amazing vision. It's a great goal to have. But it's like saying, I want to take the architect drawing and give the builders to build the first through the 9th floor. Well, guess what? They're just going to go home. They're going to do nothing because, hey, where's my blueprint? So pattern making and grading is probably not going away. Ask me if the operator will do their job. Of course, they'll do their job because someone is paying them money for that, right? But will they be happy doing the job? And we all know what it means to do a job versus be happy in doing a job, okay? And I'm trying to bring happiness because my professor in the university wrote very nicely on the board. He said, happiness is a positive cash flow. And in business, I happily agree with that.
Love that. I love that. That's true. If you want people to stay in the industry, not just attract them to the industry, but stay and have longevity and have an impact, they do need to be happy. That's important. Yeah. I'm also glad to hear that you don't think pattern making is going away, because
no, I think it should.
Other people have said otherwise.
yeah. And I hear those conversations, and honestly, one day AI will enhance it, much like when you're looking at AI in the most simplest of all ways, searching, okay? Now it became the most simplest of all thing. A lot of us are not searching on Google anymore. Actually, we do, because they have this little AI Gemini there on the top. But yeah, like a little thing to help us understand what AI does, which is a great way to promote AI, by the way. But it's still not 100% accurate, right? Like I can ask it a question about a fungus I found on my lawn, and it gave me an answer which I almost wanted to uproot all my lawn, right? Which was, of course, not needed. So So we understand it's going to be a great tool to help us, okay, fixing a problem with the car, maybe it's something that in the past either the wife calls the husband or the spouse or whatever, and they're like, how do we do this? And they were giving them a set of instructions. Now they can just do a little video and this whole thing is going to solve itself. But the idea is that we people will still need to operate things. And wherever you need to do something that is of high accuracy, and we all know what it means to do production in apparel, right? I mean, from a made-to-measure single unit all the way to 50 million units going into one of the top retailers. You miss on something small, it's like you operated on a patient at the hospital and you were watching TV while you were doing it. The patient dies. The whole thing goes in a different direction. You don't want to go. But we definitely need the technology to help us do things quicker, smarter, and more efficient.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think one of the frustrations that I'm kind of dealing with when you look at, policymakers is, again, I was a former lobbyist, but whenever you go into an office, their first question is, okay, jobs. How does this apply to jobs? And when you talk about our industry, we actually have 3 or 4 steps that we have to take before we even get to the jobs portion. Because the fact of the matter is right now, if you're talking just sewing machine operators, that is a sunsetting workforce. That is not going to grow. That's a generational thing. New generations are not going to come in and replace those people. So right off the bat, you have to change things if you want to maintain the workforce we already have. And so it's not saying we're going to add more jobs. It's we need to protect the jobs we already have because those are going to go away. And then the second step is, we've got 2.7% of all apparel we buy in the U.S. is made in the U.S. A very small percentage. And so, doubling that isn't a lot, but it's a lot. And so if you go down this path of automation, and once you get it to where we're competitive with the rest of the world and the cheapest needle, then you can start to really increase that production. And once you start to increase the production, then the jobs come into play. But we've got several steps that we have to take before it gets to that job thing. But the problem is those steps are important because if we don't take them, then we're going to lose the entire industry. The status quo is not sustainable. It's just not. Financially, environmentally, socially, it doesn't check any of the sustainable boxes. And so I think, but one of the things that excites me is we're starting to see that shift. And, you mentioned the younger generations, at Text Process Americas, I've been the youngest person in the room for 20 years. I shouldn't still be the youngest person in the room. And I'm finally not. It shouldn't have taken 20 years, but we're starting to see new, innovative, young people that are passionate. I'm seeing more startups than I've ever seen before in our industry. And so I definitely think we're starting to get that, not necessarily a breath of fresh air, but that new perspective, that new dynamic that this industry needed if it's going to survive. Because, we're going to keep getting older. So people need to come in.
Exactly the reason.
There's more startups that are going into the manufacturing and not just starting a brand and contracting it out overseas. There are more people starting small factories than ever before, which is great. So they're holistically entering the industry. Not every single person, but more than ever.
No, there's more than ever. It's like microbreweries, right? I mean, it used to be in the hands of certain big conglomerates, and now it's in the hands of a lot. I mean, you see it in wineries, in breweries, you see it sprouting all over the place. And I believe that once you put technology, it makes it an easier point of entry into our industry, right? So when you have more automation, you have more solutions that invite you to want to work with them, so it doesn't make pattern making boring. It actually makes it exciting and maybe a way to collaborate with someone, maybe some AI components operating in that software, maybe some modern, fresh, something that brings us back. Ask yourself what brings you back to a restaurant you really like. It's the experience, right? You want to come again, you want to go again. Some of us go to the same place year after year, week after week, maybe for years. So that's what I'm after. I'm after saying, and maybe the question should have been, Yoram, so 23 years, you've been trying to sell software to this industry. Why are you not going home doing something else? I mean, this is this is an industry I really found to be challenging. And one that I'm seeing now, as Michael said, and you said, that there is a change in the workforce. All the more reasons why this is some sort of an inflection point where you have to introduce something new. You cannot bring those individuals, those young individuals, we're banking so much to be the future of this industry and bring them into older tools. Now, look at 3D as an example. So 3D started as a set of 4 sets of measurements that, maybe bust, hips, and shoulders and whatnot. And it became something with so many subsets of the measurements to be able to replicate the perfect person virtually. Okay, it started with very few set of tools, like stitch it together and visualize, and now you have screen over screen, menus over menus, pretty much all the way up to shaders and the final look and feel of the product. It's not for everyone, however complicated the solution became. But when you see how people are excited about it online, it brings the feeling of like, wow, at least we set a target for where we want to reach. Now, some people will follow, others will say it's not for me, but collectively we're going to move upwards. Okay, and that's the goal of technology, is to always set a bar which is higher and then see who is coming, who is trailing behind, but collectively there is an upward movement. So I'm thinking that if you were to do it from the top of the stream, let's call it, okay, and you look at like what's the point of input. So we have great tools like Adobe Illustrator, those things, the sketching tools probably will become more smarter, maybe a little more virtualized like 3D and so on, but eventually it'll translate to something of a 2-dimensional one because it'll have to go through production. Mm-hmm. And then from there, you give some new tools, you create some ease of the point of entry. You're not calling training anymore, because when I switch a car, for example, from my wife's Honda to my Kia, I don't have to go to driving school to learn how to drive one more time. I have to get oriented. Oh, her buttons were here, mine are here. So the misconception is that when I'm switching from one CAD system to another, I have to go through a lot of training. People are telling me, I need a lot of training. And I'm like, why? I mean, don't your operators know how to operate a CAD software? Any software. And if they know, then it's orientation. It's no longer training. So those kind of things make the whole thing feel like it's not that difficult. Like some people will tell you, and that really scares companies from advancing their technology, any technology. They'll say, well, I need to make sure that if I'm switching to your software, then I need to have all the features that I had in the other software. And I'm like, well, define for me all the features. What is all the features? I mean, if I'll pull my iPhone and I turn on the screen, you'll see I have so many apps, mainly because they look really nice and the colors like all lining up like nicely on the screen. But how many of them do I really use on a daily basis? 15%, 20% at most. Basically, it depends on the category that you do in apparel design and development. You're probably using a set of 15 to 20% of the tools at any given time. If you're more on some minor changes, like maybe you're a lingerie company, those styles don't change that much. You're mainly moving points and stuff. You're probably using even less than 15%. You just don't know that. The perception is if I have a lot of buttons on my screen, then I'm using a lot of tools. But that's just like my beautiful apps on the screen here. So don't get confused. Make it easy for people to understand. It's not that difficult. Okay, change the way you call those things, change the way you look at them, and the results will change accordingly.
I think there's like good ways to cross-reference. So like we've at Columbia College Chicago, they've started utilizing Browseware and Clo 3D tools, and the students are more excited about pattern making, I think, as a result, even from using, OptiTex or other like 2D CAD programs. They wouldn't be excited about making patterns on paper, necessarily, or like a smaller percentage of them. I was like one of those that was excited about it, but many of my classmates weren't back in the day. And it's the same today. And same with sewing, like learning kind of order of operations, stitching together virtually seams helps you to understand order of operations. Like, well, if I put this together, it's going to fall off my avatar. But if I put this together first, it sews together.
Yeah.
And it's not always perfectly sequenced that way, but I think it helps people wrap their mind around, another way to do something.
Yeah, we're not asking them to go to paper. That's for sure. It's like I don't write setting up this podcast. We were doing it over email, but nobody sent a letter to make sure the email got there, right? So there's no point in going back.
Right. Very true. Do we want to transition a little bit and talk specifically about your school box program with Morgan Tecnica? I'd love to learn more about how that works, where it originated from. I'm sure some of the conversation we've been having is probably some of that inspiration, but tell us a little bit about that.
So it's been my 5th month at actually starting on my 6th month with Morgan Tecnica. It seems like it's been a few years. These guys are really fun to work with. There's always something funny happening in this company, and yet, throughout all these years, the company has been growing. And one person, I got to share this because it's a nice segue to the school box program. But in a recent trade show 2 weeks ago, someone was asking me, I was standing outside on the aisle, as I usually like to do, fishing people out of the aisle. Hey, free alcohol here, come over there, And someone walks in with his wife. And the wife starts looking at what's going on, and I tell the husband, this is going to cost you money. I hope you know that. And he started laughing. He's like, what do you guys do? I'm like, well, she seems to know what she's looking at. What do you guys do? I asked him back, and he said, we probably own one of the largest furniture company in the Netherlands. And I'm like, okay, so you have cutting equipment. He said, yeah, we have from a certain manufacturer, a certain brand. And I said, you probably have that type of machine. He said, yes, we do. He says, well, why should we work with you? I said, that's a great question. I have 2 options. One is I can bore you with the details that I have this button, they do not. I have this feature, they do not. But you're going to lose me and I'm going to lose you. And we're just going to end up drinking alcohol. And probably that's going to be the end of our relationship. But I can tell you that it actually is all about people. Now, everyone is going to tell you people, right? Because it's very nice, it's politically correct and that kind of stuff. But let me explain to you what I mean by people. 17 years ago, this company started. Okay. And at that time, there was probably every possible cutting machine you can find was already out on the market, from Japan through Asia and all the way to Europe. Okay. But 17 years later, this company has presence in 65 countries through 50 distributors. How do you win against all odds? People. Okay. Said, let me come into your booth and take a look at that. That's the coolness that exists in Morgan, is people. And they thought about something which I used to call lunchbox. And they told me, Yoram, no, it's school box. So the school box is probably my days from school. But the school box is actually a nice, it's more like an innovation on top of what's probably other has been doing, in offering their software in the industry and wanting the schools to start teach the software. But usually it was a very clean transaction. Either I donate the software, which I hate the concept of donation, because donation has a certain perception to it, right? Usually I would donate something that is of no use to me, but someone else may benefit from. That's not a way to sell. So, that was one way. The other one is to sell at a very discounted price and say, listen, I give you a very special discount, you're a school, and so on and so forth, which is great. All those systems are probably valid. But then we said, okay, how do we make it a lot more of a fun experience? So first thing we said, let's not charge the students anything. Let's virtually collect their licenses that they can install at home, at the lab, wherever they may be. They can use the license, and they can work fully on it. But the only thing is, if they want to plot it, meaning to take it to production, then they have to go through the teacher license. That's kind of where the teacher needs to exercise their decision in saying, you know what, I will allow it or I will not. Again, the purpose is to give them the feel, but let the teacher or the professor control that. The second thing was to say, what will the faculty pay for this? So basically, it's some sort of a deposit on the dongle or the license and something like that. It's not even a description that I can attach to it, like skin in the game. There's not even a skin in the game. It's a very light skin in the game. But then we said, okay, what else can we do here? And then Morgan, being Morgan, with the fun way in how we operate and think, they said, let's create a competition between all the schools globally and say, again, Morgan is really cool with the names and how we call our products. So we called it Design2Morgan, Design, the number 2, Morgan. So winning patterns from the schools, wherever they may be. We actually look at all the patterns that the students are creating, whatever is being shared with us, and whenever the patterns are meeting certain criteria, we then include them in our sample bases. That's a library of pattern that we deliver with every new license we sell globally, and that has the student's name, it has their country, and it has the contact details, because we want to give them exposure. Okay, so win-win situation. We gain really cool patterns. They gain exposure. They may be fished, let's say, by a customer in New York City saying, hey, listen, this guy out there in Sri Lanka is amazing. Let's interview them. Okay, and what is school? Michael, you spoke before about jobs, right? I mean, how does it create jobs? What is a school if not for the jobs it creates for its students? Now, there is a big library already of such patterns, okay, and that's very unique to Morgan. That's part one of what we've done with the program. Part two of what we've done with the program is we said many times students are learning about a program, but they don't understand how it was created, where it was created, what's behind this company, and so on. I mean, show us the behind the scenes of the company. So if they have a budget, they can travel to our office in Adro, Italy, and kind of get to see how we build the machines, walk the production line, see the assembly line, and so on, and shipping and all this. So like really understand how a cutting machine comes together. Also take a look at our software development center, which is in our Morgan 2 headquarters. We actually have M1 and M2. Sounds like the spy agency for MI5, right? Like in London. No. We only have one M. So there's M1 and M2, and then they can actually walk the line and understand everything around that. If they cannot afford that, maybe they don't have a travel budget, then we do it virtually for them. Okay, so we partner with the school to give them the behind the scenes and understanding of how this thing works. So we have two options. First of all, is the three things actually that we offer the schools. One is to say, work from anywhere by anyone at any level. Okay, the faculty member controls what the students are able to actually produce. Second thing is Design2Morgan, okay, which is the ability to actually expose your creative work throughout the world. And the third one is we call it Meet2Morgan, so meet the number 2 and Morgan, which is that virtual or in-person experience. And that kind of like how we try to bring more excitement. We just had a recent trade show in Italy. There was a good number of schools visiting us over there, and they were like really excited about it. I'm very happy with this program so far.
It's awesome. Yeah, I remember I got the privilege of visiting the Morgan facility probably 8 years ago, and I don't know if they still have Area 52, but that's what they called their R&D center. And like, you know, that's just, I mean, it's just a name, but it added a little something to it. And I was like, this is really, so it definitely gave the impression of what you're talking about when you talk about the creative and fun-loving nature that Morgan has. I've always appreciated that. So.
Like, how do we call our marker making, Sochil? Do you know that?
I don't know.
Tetrix.
That's great. It is
Tetrix.
It is just like it. And if you're really good at putting those pieces all together, make a good marker.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess I wanted to make sure we did a recap of Text Process Americas as that wrapped up, because we had the privilege of kind of us participating and introducing of the School Box program. And again, we're excited for the work that you're doing, because I've just from a personal level, I've always been heavily engaged. I used to call myself a glorified interpreter of trying to interpret academic writing in a way that industry can understand it. And so it's most of my career seems to have been, how do I bridge the gap either between like policymakers in the industry or academia in the industry. There's gaps that need to be bridged, and so whenever anybody takes that initiative, I'm always very, very supportive of it. But one of the things, I was just in Germany, and there was probably 5 or 6 German companies that exhibited a text process, and it was funny because the overwhelming sentiment was that the show was surprisingly good. And I was like, well, I don't really like that there's,
surprisingly
an ecosystem where I have to surprise you that it's good, but I'll take it. Because again, people they're dealing with the frustrations of our industry right now. And I mean, tariffs are a big deal. And so there is a lot of uncertainty in our industry, but I think there was definitely proof of resilience at the show. People showed up, like people wanted to be there. People made a connection. And there seemed to be meaningful connections that were happening at the show this time around, and so we're excited for, we're going to spend the next 2 years trying to fix that ecosystem where I don't have to surprise you with good quality of a trade show.
Expect a good trade show. Yes.
Exactly.
Maybe you should have everyone's expectations at 0. Then everything will be a surprise. You won't have to mention the word surprise anymore. So I'm just kidding.
That would make my job too easy. No, if I just exceed expectations every time, no, I need to raise the expectations and then exceed them.
Well, in my proposal, you'll score 100 each and every time, right? Because everything is going to be better than zero. So think about the positiveness there. But the idea is, I share your view, okay? I share your view about the show. Take the word surprisingly out. But I share your view about the show. I think I was coming into the show, and I think maybe that's the reason why people were using the word surprisingly, just because, the tariffs, the Liberation Day, all this thing came about just before the show. I mean, it was kind of not exactly a surprise for a lot of people that, Trump was heading in that direction, but nonetheless, nobody understood that that's going to be the magnitude or the effect of it leading into the show. So that's kind of where the surprise for me took place is the meaningful conversations we were having with customers. We have such that came repeatedly day after day, 3 days in a row. And I'm speaking about some significant players in the industry coming in and bringing their teams and sitting down. They're about to make decisions about buying equipment, for example, or buying a new software. So while I wasn't expecting anyone to come in and say, oh, I'm just exploring and I'm ready to make a decision right now, that's not how it works. But I was quite surprised to learn that they're not stopping their decision making in light of what's going on out there as far as the political game that wasn't still happening around us. And I think the weeks after the show, it further strengthens my view about it, because I don't see companies necessarily stopping their decisions. Some of them maybe have slowed it down, but the intentions still remain there. And as we get to see this morning's headline about the potential deal, I hope, between US and China, but there will be more deals happening. I mean, everyone who came to our booth, kind of like nodded. Listen, America has been on a disadvantage, maybe a gentle word here as far as trade relations goes, but it's time to fix things. So in one way, they acknowledge that. It's not like they were saying, America is on to something that is uncontrolled and unplanned or unjustified. They were positive in what they were saying. So I'm happy to see that, and I was happy to see during the show that the reaction was what it was, meaningful conversations, much deeper than I had in previous shows. Yeah. Okay, the amount of time that they spent at our booth, the amount of time that they sat down for meetings was a way for me to measure, was it or was it not a good show? So I'm on the side of those who are saying it was a good show. I measure it, of course, by results. So all good stuff for me.
No, I appreciate that. And again, I think it was, even I going in of like, I know how many exhibitors I have. I know how many registrations there are, but I don't know who's going to show up. And, I had enough conversations with some people from Canada being like, hell no, I'm not coming. I'm like, okay. Yeah. We just held a conference in Montreal. Like, we're not your enemies here. Yeah. And so there was always that concern. But then, yeah, when people showed up, and I think what excites me the most is that we can't have more uncertainty in the industry, and I'm going to knock on wood while I say that. I've changed the guarantees in life, like death, taxes, and I've added a supply chain disruption. There will always be another supply chain disruption. I don't know if it'll be a pandemic or the Suez Canal getting blocked. There'll be something. There will always be something. But I think, as we start to get more certainty, there's so much potential to build off of. We had more first-time exhibitors than I've ever been a part of, at our trade show. We had more startups than I've ever seen, and we're really starting to see, that growth potential from not, if you want to get in the industry, you don't have to start with a big brand. Like there are ways to start small. There are ways to be entrepreneurs in this industry that really excite me about the next 2, 3, 5 years.
There's really a good reason why most of the technology startups are happening in a garage someplace. Okay, yeah. Those movies are created not for the fun, but they're actually depicting real life situations. And I have a friend who did that in his garage and went through 2 exits in the tens and the hundreds of millions of dollars. So very close friend. Not in our industry, just to be clear, but it is encouraging for me. Every such garage that keeps the light on late at night is another building block into that journey that we mentioned. And when you look at the school box and you go back to the conversation we were having about the experience of the young generation, you understand how it all connects. Okay. and it all connects and zooms in and help build that focus around the journey that we're taking. So I'm not necessarily in the situation we're in right now. I'm not necessarily influenced by one world event to another, because if you want to judge progress by challenges that are out there, I mean, just look back at how the world was reacting in the days when there was no internet, to anywhere from post-World War II to the more modern wars, or the financial crisis of 1995, 2008, and onwards. Okay, there was little visibility, clarity on things. Yet we keep surging, we keep growing, we keep thriving, because that's the nature of people. Okay, we're always going to try and thrive to get to a better place. And that's the same thing about our technology. From my Vista point, 23 years doing this, okay, when I sold my first 3D license in the year 2003 to a company in Wisconsin, no longer in business, not because of me, because of the changes out there, but it was like, wow, are you sure this avatar is even real? And look at the amazing content some really great talents are putting out there on LinkedIn. Now, again, is it for everyone? Probably not, but slowly we will converge, and slowly this thing will become a mainstream. Make it easy, make it more acceptable, make it more affordable, and make it, more importantly, a great experience for the user. User will come back. They'll say, I want to use it because I can benefit from it, not he or she or anybody else.
The supply chain has gone through and will continue to go through so many changes. Again, it goes back to everyone in this industry has a desire, and maybe it's a sickness that we'd love to problem solve, and it's just like, what's the next disaster? What do I have to navigate through next? And let's bring it on. We've gotten through so many things. Now we have, the internet and information rapidly in our face, that maybe that's a place where technology and AI can help us sift through the noise a bit, to navigate it smarter, better, and be more resilient as we go forward.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you mentioned earlier. Your friend doing a garage startup, but one of the things that I've noticed is nobody creates a startup in our industry to make a quick buck, because you're not gonna. There has to be an underlying passion for somebody to come into this industry, because it's not a quick buck. It's not easy. You could take that passion and expertise and go to a different industry, and that could be more profitable. But people choose, again, whether they're born or tricked into it. Eventually, they do make a choice to stay in this industry.
There is magic.
It does bring in an interesting type of person.
Listen, the bottom line is there is magic in clothing. There is something that when you speak about a piece of cloth, a garment, you always look up and sideways, because you try to envision it. It's not something you can hold in your hand, like saying iPhone. Then immediately you get a vision of what the iPhone looks like. A garment can be interpreted in so many ways just by having a conversation. And I'll say a blouse, and you'll imagine it in one color with different sleeves, a raglan sleeve. I'll imagine it with more boxy sleeve, and so on. You can go in so many different ways, and this is really kind of where you can have a really great conversation around. So our industry is great. It's growing. We need ourselves to be in this industry in order to drive that passion onwards, whether it's through the academics like you're doing, Sochil, whether it's through organizations like SPISA, whether it's through people like myself who are out there meeting with dozens and hundreds of customers out there, small, medium, large, wherever they may be, Asia, USA, Central, South America, and so on and so forth. Because every story is another building block in how we're going to change this industry. Every such interaction is another small building block. And that's why I keep saying again and again, this is a journey rather than a leap that is very easy to measure or as easy to execute.
Where do you think that journey will go in the next 2 years before the next text process?
It will.
Predictions?
I think
predictions or goals, I guess.
The goal is to try. Okay, very good question. If it was up to me, my goal will be to try and create more togetherness in how solutions operate. I'm not saying merger and acquisitions or create a same file that I can read in all software. I'm just saying make it easy to transition one component from one system to another. Simple analogy, a car. You look at Mercedes-Benz, most of the components are not made by Mercedes-Benz, right? I mean, but it still comes together so beautifully to the point that you say, oh my God, it's an amazing car. We need to try for that stage first.
Yeah.
Okay. There is a room for everyone. The world is big. I think, I'm not sure if my numbers are correct, but after food, clothing is the second largest thing that people consume. Okay. Because when we eat, we need to hide ourselves behind something, right? So that's just me thinking that this is the second largest. So there's always something that can come together. There's room for everyone, all right? And then the goal for text process 2 years from now is to present technology as the leading force behind optimization and efficiency in design and production. That's if I had to, put a theme. It's efficiency and in productivity, efficiency, and automation around our industry. That will be my goal, because that's a nice thing to lay in front of all the exhibitors right now. Focus your booth, focus your presentation, focus your discussions. Let's bring people to look forward rather than look at what I can do right now, but look forward. Because what I have, you're going to see at my booth. But what I'm looking out into, it's the future that you're coming to the show for.
Oh, a message of hope.
Yeah. I love that.
I need that. So some more of that these days. I appreciate the.
You're very welcome. Always pleasure. That's what I hope this is. That's why I'm still staying in the industry, by the way.
Good. We don't want to lose you.
I'm not giving up.
No, he knows he can't escape. He's tried. It's not happening.
I tried. It didn't work.
Don't let anyone convince you on another airplane in the future.
Yeah. I'm not talking to anyone on the plane anymore.
Okay. Perfect.
Well, I am forever grateful for your contribution to this industry, and again, I like it's a mindset that's contagious, and it's something that we definitely need to continue to help spread across their industry. So we definitely appreciate you being the evangelist for that, and taking the time to talk with us.
Yeah.
I don't know if we kept it under the 43 minutes this time, but we were closer.
We might have been close, but yeah, we had a good run there, and I love the closing hopeful message as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you guys. By the way, it's not about me. It couldn't make it without you guys and everyone around us, because it's all about that teamwork, right? If we're all going to come together, it will work. If we're going to operate in silo, just like typical silo is, just going to take us so far. So,
there's a reason I've been in the association world my entire career. I feel like I am obligated to agree with that message.
Yeah.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yep.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure spending this afternoon with you. And,
absolutely.
Looking forward for the final product.
Yes, sir.
All right. Bye, guys.